Hey guys, we're live on the moon, and it's Sunday night at midnight. Midnight. And old Bill's staying up for you guys, trying to let the moon settle down a little bit. You can see it's wavy. Uh, I'm going to do something different tonight. I'm going to give you a drift survey. We're going to kind of go right to left and then left to right. We are easily twice as close tonight as we were last night. If you look at this thing right here, this is what I called a mesa on yesterday's video, and if you go and look at it, you'll see it's about twice as close as we were before. Right now the shadow line is on the bottom. That means it's on the top. We are flipped. I have the diagonal in there. That's what's given us the extra focal length, which is going to increase the magnification. My name is Bill Bryson, and I'm bound and determined to do a survey of the moon every night that I possibly can, weather permitting, so that I can look for strange things on the moon. I don't think that NASA is telling us the truth about anything. Well, there are probably some things, but mostly not. And I'm a believer, a Bible thumper, and in my book of Revelation it tells me to keep my eyes on the heavens, and that's exactly what I'm doing. And I'm looking for strange things on the moon. Isn't that beautiful, guys? These things here are what they call Mars, oceans or seas. And these are mountain ranges here, see? And then these are craters. Now, the craters that are in the Mars, I contend that these are made out of some kind of crystal or something, because I think you can see through them. It's like they were water and it hardened, or I don't know what it is, but it just looks to me translucent. These things here, you see how that crater sticks up in the air? That's what I call a hornet nest crater, because it reminds me of a hornet nest. I can control the exposure. See, I just increased the exposure. And then basically as we get inside the moon, I'll have to decrease it. And this is just like, see, it's getting a little bit bright right there, see? So what I'll do is I'll just drop, just like a traffic cop, trying to control the exposure. This is just like you were in a spaceship flying around the moon, and I'm giving you a little tour. You're looking out your porthole at the surface of the moon, or you're a lunar module pilot. The command module is sitting on the moon, and they're exploring the moon, and you're up there in your lunar modules, and you're navigating and circling around the moon, taking pictures. I think it's fascinating. It's just like you're an explorer. See, I dropped the See, I drop the exposure and I bring out some of the detail, guys. I've been on this moon for about an hour and a half, 2 hours. And when it first came up, it was a really nice harvest moon. But as things go for astronomers, a harvest moon is not necessarily the best moon. Matter of fact, it's downright terrible. And this isn't, I don't think, as good as it was last night. But in this business, you kind of take what you can get. Now see how it's just a little bit overpowering right there. And I'm going up too far. Let me drop the exposure down. Okay, that's a good place. See, what I'll do, we go up a little bit, and then we're going to go to the right, and we're going to do a drift survey. I'd like to try to look at the entire moon every evening. I'm looking for strange things, guys. I believe that the moon is populated with aliens. In particular, I believe the moon is populated with fallen angels. And Russians and Americans. I believe there's moon bases up there with Americans sitting in those bases. And I believe we got Americans and fallen angels and weird creatures on Mars too. You say, well, Bill, how can you believe that? I'm a crazy dude. One thing I do know is the moon has got a lot of color, and NASA has done their best to pretend to us that the moon is a dead gray area. But you can see I'm not doing anything to the color. I'm just showing you what's up there, and there's a whole bunch of different colors up there. You know what, in particular, let's just look at this for a second. I know it's jumping around. That, by the way, is not the wind. I don't have any wind. I don't have any clouds. What you're looking at is what they call atmospherics on the moon. It's between here and the moon. It's in our atmosphere, the stratosphere, the ionosphere, heat convections, you name it. We were, the last couple nights we were cool, and today it started to get warm. Well, what does that do? That means that there's a temperature variance. That's why we're seeing more atmospherics tonight than we did last night, simply because of the weather and the weather change. I stopped here just to show you this mountain range. This is called the Monday Alps. They actually use the word Alps. And it actually is a famous mountain range. And see, it goes down here. And if you go back on my videos, sometimes when I deviate like that, I get off track. Let me continue on. Otherwise, we're never going to finish this thing. If you go to my videos, you'll see I have a whole bunch of different wonderful videos. I go back and watch them all the time. They're just so relaxing. But I have have one video in particular that is just so interesting because it shows you uh, the ridge of a mountain range, and I think it was the Mondo Alps that basically I caught it at just the right time with the sun, and you could see the shadow of the peaks in the valley. I mean, absolutely incredible. I've also caught what I think are shadows that are on the moon. A lot of people don't believe it. They think, well, Bill, that's not true. They're bugs, you know, they're birds. But this is a Schmidt-Carradine telescope. It's absolutely impossible to. Let me turn up the exposure so we can see more detail. And I could put my hand in front of this telescope, guys, and move it back and forth, and you wouldn't see a difference at all. I mean, you wouldn't see anything. You take a pencil and put it right in front of the lens, and you wouldn't see anything. It's a light gathering telescope. Now, I grant you, if this was a refractor telescope, it would be a different thing. Then you would see things. But this is a Schmidt-Carradine telescope. It's impossible. And to prove it, if you go back 2 videos, uh, I was on Jupiter, and isn't that beautiful? Absolutely stunning. Look at all those little craters, guys. And I really kind of like it when it's wavy like that because it makes it look kind of spooky. You know what I mean? It's kind of waving around. That's the atmospherics. Anyhow, if you go back 3 videos, you'll see when I was on Jupiter, and then I did a beam on to go to the moon. Okay, now I got to drop down the exposure, guys, so we can see better. And I was on the moon, but I was looking at the moon, I mean, through the trees and the leaves. See, this is a light gathering telescope. It'll gather it around the leaves and trees. And you didn't see no shadow or nothing. It was just like a clear picture. This is an 8-inch scope, so it can gather light really well. It does it real well. Let me show you something on these. See, this is a very major crater on the moon. And sometimes when you're looking at it, it gets real bright. See how it's real bright? I turned the exposure up. And when you turn it down, you can see these bright areas right here and here. I call them points of light. And isn't it interesting? You can see these waves coming off. Very interesting. I'm absolutely fascinated by the moon. Me and my neighbor, a friend of mine, Mike, were studying the Bible together and realized that a lot of the signs for believers during the end days are coming from the heavens, and we're commanded by our Lord to keep our eyes on the heavens and the moon and everything else. So that's exactly what I'm doing. And in the process, I'm discovering that there's things flying around up there. Okay. And I've found on the moon structures, uh, what to me look like cities, and that's good. I want to say something before I talk about the cities. A friend of mine, Facebook friend and YouTube friend Henning, lives in Illinois, and he thinks he can see a blue tinge around the moon. Now down here in Texas, I've been looking for it and I don't see it. That doesn't mean it's not up there. It just means that right now in Texas I can't see it. Uh, but I'm on the alert to look for a blue tinge, and if I see it, I'm going to film it and talk about it. Isn't that beautiful? Absolutely stunning. In the course of my daily excursions on the moon, uh, I have discovered what I think are very unusual structures. And there's one area that I videoed was what I call Crystal Lake. If you go back in my videos and look for the one that says Crystal Lake structures, uh, I, I really can't say it's a city, but I mean it just looks unusual. There's L-shaped structures, there's rectangular structures, there's square structures. There's even one building that looks like it has an atrium, you know, and I'm going to do a separate video on that, but I have seen some very unusual structures. Now that doesn't mean when you look at it you see the same things, because I look at things and I look at them a little bit more scrupulously. See, when I was in the military, I was in the Rangers in 1972 through 76, and I was stationed at Fort Stewart, the 1st Battalion, 75th Infantry, the Ranger Battalion. Matter of fact, we were the first battalion that was formed since the Second World War, and I was one of the cadre that was actually chosen to be there. When I got out of the active Army, I went into the National Guard, and part of my assignment, isn't that beautiful? I mean, it's absolutely stunning. Let me just raise the exposure up. Brighten it, no, too much. There's Clavius. See that? Let me see. Drop the exposure down just a dab. Clavius is a famous crater on the moon because a lot of UFO people think that there's aliens up there and they see these lasers and lights and everything coming from it. You can tell it because it has 1, 2, 3, 4 little craters inside. It's one of my favorite craters. Clavius. Anyhow, I try to get out and look at this moon every night, and I'm looking for strange things. Last night we did see a tower. Somebody wrote and said, I don't see a tower. Well, I did. I mean, I saw something that was sticking up out of a crater, and it was straight up in the air. And look, it's either a fissure on the ground that just happened to be in the right direction for that video, or it was a tower. And because there were L-shaped structures and squares and right angles. See, every time you on the moon, a crater's round. You know, a mountain jagged. But when you start seeing right angles and L-shaped things and squares and rectangles and pyramid structures, and I've seen those too. I mean, those are man-made, guys. So when I see all these things next to this thing that's sticking up in the air, I'm going to say, well, that's a tar. I'm going to talk about this right here for just a second. Let me drop it down and turn the exposure down a little bit. This blows me away every time I look at it. To me, see, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You got 6 craters that are lined up like ducks on a pond right there. And right across the street, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You got the same number just about on the other side that are lined up like ducks on a pond. And it looks to me like a big old runway for a mothership coming in. You know, I know that's not what it is, but I don't know what it is. I just know that it's kind of strange. Thought I'd point that out. If it's strange and it's on the moon, old Bill's going to find it and point it out. You might not believe what he says, but uh, I'll humor you in any case. Now see, this telescope of mine has I'm sitting in front of a computer and I'm controlling this telescope. And I'm trying to do that's a complete horizontal drift survey. We're going to do one more thing and then we're going to wrap it up. We're going to do a circumference survey. I find these to be very beneficial. A circumference survey of the moon. And see what we can see. You'll notice that tonight the image is closer than it was last night. And that's because I'm using that diagonal that increases the focal length. Now see how the color changed? Isn't that beautiful, guys? I mean, you really do think you're in a spaceship looking through a porthole at the moon on a tour. And just like Richard Hoagland, you know, he wrote a book with a with his pal called Dark NASA. Well, I believe that Dark NASA exists. I mean, big time. And they're hiding all kinds of things. I wouldn't be surprised if they take select people up and do them tours of the moon. Matter of fact, I wouldn't be surprised if that pair of flying saucers that I caught flying around. Let me crank up the exposure now. See how when I come down here and it gets darker, and you know, then you got to turn the exposure up. See, I wouldn't be surprised if they were giving somebody a tour of the moon and they were flown by Americans. I think it's a sinful thing for NASA to have all these secrets and not share them with the public who paid for them. Now look at that, guys. I don't know what that is, but see that right there? That is just kind of strange. I get angry every time I think about NASA because I know that they have been hiding all kinds of things uh, from the unwary public. And that's, again, one of the other reasons I'm up here looking. I do have a bunch of Barlow lenses. Barlow lenses let you get closer even than I am right here. Now look at that. See, even since we started, see how the shadows are changing the optical effects. Here's that thing I called a mesa the other day, yesterday, and now you can see how it's enunciated with that shadow line. How, and again, we're still fighting that wave. We haven't been able to get rid of that wave, but here the reason is because in Texas we've had a warm front come in. Isn't this interesting? You got 1, 2, 3 little tiny craters at the edge. And here you got 2 ones. 1, 2, 3. Absolutely stunning pictures, guys. Stunning, stunning pictures. And I would encourage any of you to get a telescope. You don't have to spend a lot of money. Celestron sells a telescope. It's called a First Look, and there's Clavius again, and I'll turn the exposure down, and it's like, I think, $49, and you get a bunch of lenses. You don't have to spend a lot of money to get something like that and set it up in your backyard and look at the moon, look at some stars. It's a lot of fun. I encourage everybody to get involved in astronomy. And let me turn the exposure down on this, and we're going to quit right here next to my mothership runway right there. See the satellites? There. Perfect for landing a mothership, guys. Okay, that's it. I got clear skies for the next 3 or 4 days, and I'm going to be out every night that I can see it. And my theory is, if I do it often enough and consistently, I'm going to come up with some strange things. Go back and look at my videos. They're all very interesting, and some of them are very specific about structures and some unusual things. In the meantime, I wish you and yours clear skies, guys.